Open Twitter right now, and it feels like game dev is over. Studios are laying people off, AI is replacing artists, voice actors are getting cloned, and every job post somehow wants 5 years of experience for a junior role. So the obvious question is, yo devs, Russ here. If you came here looking for motivation, wrong video. If you came here to hear that game dev is dead, also wrong video. This video is a practical breakdown of every real game dev role that still exists in 2026. No hype, no doom posting, no follow your dream bullshit. This video is for 3 types of people. If you're just starting out and trying to choose a path, or if you are already in the industry and thinking about switching roles, or if you just want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's actually happening right now. For each role we're going to talk about 3 things: what you actually do, what sucks about it, and where this role realistically survives: studios, freelance, or indie. What I'm not gonna mention here are salaries, cause they really vary from region to region, and from your experience for sure, cause the more experience you have, the more money you're gonna get. Also, if you become an expert in your field, it doesn't really matter which field you're expert in, you're gonna get pretty enough money, so just whatever makes sense to you. Because here's the truth, game dev didn't become impossible, easy entry did. If this kind of breakdown is useful to you, subscribe to the channel, it generally helps the video reach more people, and yeah, it also makes me happy. And write a comment, if you're already in game dev, tell me what you agree with, what you don't, and what I missed. And if you're just thinking about getting into the industry, write your questions in the comments. I'll make sure none of them are left unanswered, and chances are other devs will jump in too. Alright, before we zoom into individual roles, let's take a step back and look at the whole picture, because game dev isn't one career, it's an ecosystem. Most people get stuck because they zoom in too early. They pick a role name without understanding where it sits in the pipeline, so let's fix that. Programming is the backbone. If something moves, reacts, breaks, or explodes, a programmer made it happen. This includes gameplay programmers, tool developers, AI and system engineers, and network programmers. Different specialties, same responsibility, turning design into something that actually works. Now, design is about decisions, rules, systems, player experience. It's not about ideas, it's about consequences. Game designers define how things work, level designers shape how player moves through the space, and technical designers live in the middle, scripting, tuning, prototyping. Art is what players see first. Characters, environment, props, the entire visual identity of the game. This includes 2D artists, 3D artists, environment artists, and character artists. Different focuses, same pressure. Your work is judged instantly. Tech art lives between art and code. It's the glue that makes visuals performant, scalable, and shippable. Technical artists and VFX artists don't just make things pretty, they make sure pretty things don't tank your frame rate. UI and UX are not decoration, they are the interface between the player and literally everything else you build. UI designers focus on layout, hierarchy, and readability. UX designers focus on flow, clarity, friction, and accessibility. Different jobs, same goal. Make sure that player doesn't fight the game itself. Audio is invisible until it's missing. Sound effects, music, feedback, all of it shapes how the game feels. This includes sound designers, composers, and voice actors. But here is the reality check. Implementation matters more than creation. There are other roles nobody dreams about, and no project survives without. Producers, project managers keep teams aligned. QA finds problems before players do. Build and release engineers make sure that game actually ships. And finally, indie. This is not a role, this is a game mode. Solo developers and small indie teams do everything. Design, code, marketing, all at once. Total freedom, zero safety net. This is the full landscape. Different roles, different risks, different passes. Now let's zoom in and talk specifics. Let's start with the role most people think of when they hear game dev. Oh, gameplay programmers build the moment-to-moment experience, movement, combat, abilities, all the systems that player actually touches. If it feels good to play, a gameplay programmer probably had a hand in it. If it feels like shit, yeah, same person. On a daily basis, gameplay programmers implement mechanics designed on paper, turn vague ideas into concrete rules, debug why something almost works but not quite, and spend an unhealthy amount of time tweaking numbers. You're constantly translating between three worlds: design intent, technical reality, and player expectations. Pros: strong demand, skills that transfer between studios, engines, and even industries, and AI tools can actually make you faster instead of obsolete. Good gameplay programmers are hard to replace because good gameplay is hard to fake. Cons: high competition, high expectations, and a very visible failure mode. When your code breaks, everyone feels it: designers, artists, players, and Steam reviews. And no, watching tutorials does not prepare you for this. Real gameplay code is messy, it changes constantly, and it breaks in creative ways. Gameplay programmers thrive in studios, AA and AAA especially. They also work well in small indie teams. Pure freelance, usually not a good idea at the start. Gameplay systems need context, iteration, and tight feedback loops. AI helps gameplay programmers write boilerplate faster. It helps to debug, it helps to prototype. What it doesn't do is deciding what feels good to play. AI can write code. It can't replace the taste. If you want to start as gameplay programmer in 2026, you need proof, not ideas, not certificates, playable things. Small, ugly, finished. Gameplay programming is a great path. Just don't underestimate how hard it is to actually get good. Now, let's talk about one of the least flashy and most underrated roles in game development: tools and engine programmers. These are people who don't make the game feel good to play. They make the game possible to make at all. Tool programmers build the infrastructure: editor tools, pipelines, build systems, automations, anything that saves the team time or prevents them from shooting themselves in the foot. If a designer can prototype without asking a programmer, that's tools. If an artist doesn't want to murder the engine, that's tools. If builds don't explode every Friday, also tools. Pros: lower competition, extremely high value to studios, and a very stable career path. Good tools programmers quietly multiply the productivity of the entire team. One person can save hundreds of hours. Cons: nobody claps. Nobody writes Steam reviews about your build pipeline, and your wins are mostly invisible. When tools work, nobody notices. When they break, everyone knows your name. Tools and engine programmers shine in mid to large studios, anywhere with multiple designers, artists, and long production cycles. Small indie teams usually don't feel this pain yet. Big teams live in it every single day. AI helps generate boilerplate and speed up refactors, but tools programming is about understanding workflows, not just coding. AI can write script, but it can't predict how 10 designers will misuse them. If you enjoy making other people faster, this role is gold. If you need constant visible results and praise, this will hurt. Tools programmers don't chase glory, they build leverage. This is where things stop being obvious. AI and systems programmers work in the parts of the game player rarely see but constantly feel. Enemy behavior, combat logic, pathfinding, physics, simulation. The invisible rules that describes whether a game feels fair or broken. On a daily basis, systems programmers design decision-making logic, balance competing rules, optimize systems that runs every frame, and spend a lot of time asking what happens if the player does something stupid. Your job isn't to make AI smart, it's to make it believable, predictable, and performant. Pros: extremely high value, lower competition than gameplay programming, and skills that age very well. Good systems code scales. Bad system code destroys project. Cons: high cognitive load, long debugging sessions, and bugs that only appear after 6 hours of playtesting. When something goes wrong here, the fix is rarely obvious. There is no Stack Overflow to answer for "my AI feels unfair." AI and systems programmers shine in AA and AAA studios, anywhere with complex combat, large worlds, or heavy simulations. Smaller teams often don't feel this pain yet. big games live and die by it. Ironically, AI tools can't replace AI programmers, they increase the need for them. The more complexity you add, the more rules you need to keep the game stable. Someone still has to own that logic. If you like thinking the systems, trade-offs and edge cases, this role is incredibly rewarding. If you need fast, visible wins, this will be pretty painful for you. Systems programmers is where games quietly succeed or slowly collapse. If gameplay bugs are annoying, multiplayer bugs are personal. Network programmers work on everything that happens between players. Replication, synchronization, authority, latency, cheating, basically making sure everyone plays the same game. On a daily basis, network programmers decide what runs the server and what runs on the client, design replication rules, fight latency, and spend a lot of time explaining why just send everything is not an option. Your job is to make broken internet feel fair. Pros: very high demand, low supply of good specialists, and skill that transfer directly to backend and distributed systems. Good network programmers are rare, and studios know it. Cons: everything is harder. Bugs are not deterministic, and players will blame you for their Wi-Fi. You will debug issues you can't reproduce across machines you don't control, on networks that actively hate you. Network programmers shine in multiplayer and live service games. Shooters, MMOs, co-op games, anything with more than one human. Solo indie almost never worth it. Small teams underestimate these costs all the time. AI can help analyzing logs and detecting anomalies, but it can't design authority model, and it can't negotiate physics with bad ping. Multiplayer is still very human pain. If you enjoy distributed systems, edge cases and suffering, the role is powerful. If you hate uncertainty, run. When multiplayer works, players don't notice, and when it doesn't, they never forget. Quick note before we move on. On Patreon, I'm working on a separate video where I go much deeper into what the developer career actually looks like. Not roles, but progression. We'll break down the real paths, trainee, junior, middle, senior, what changes, what actually matters, and what nobody tells you at the start. I'm also gonna share my personal story, how I started, where I fucked up, and what I do differently today. If you want the long version, it will be there. Stay updated. Design is the most misunderstood role in game development, because from the outside it looks like ideas, and from the inside it's responsibility. Designers decide how the game works, what the player can do, what they can't, and how the game reacts when players try to break it. Every good design decision removes confusion. Every bad one creates bugs that no amount of code can fully fix. Let's start with the classic one, game designer. Game designers work with rules and systems, combat logic, progression, economy, player motivation. On a daily basis, game designers define rules, tune numbers, write specs that programmers will misunderstand, and then fix those specs. Design is less about creativity and more about iteration. You test, you watch players fail, you change things over and over. Pros: huge impact on the final game, creative ownership of the systems, and deep involvement in player experience. Cons: oversaturation, hard entry, and constant criticism. When something feels bad, design is blamed first, sometimes fairly, sometimes not. Game designers work best inside studios and stable teams. Freelance design almost never works. Design needs context, trust, and iteration. AI can generate ideas, it can't take responsibility for consequences. Design is still a human job, because someone has to own the decision. If you want to be a game designer, stop collecting ideas, start testing them. Badly. In public. Designers is not about being right, it's about fixing things until players stop complaining. Level designers work with space, flow, pacing, and player movement. They decide where the player goes, what they see, when they fight, and when they get a moment to breathe. On a daily basis, level designers block out spaces, place enemies and encounters, test players' routes, and iterate endlessly based on how players actually behave, not on how they should behave. Good level design guides the player without telling them what to do. Pros: very tangible output, strong portfolio material, and clear impact on movement-to-movement gameplay. Cons: tool-dependent skills, studio-specific workflows, and a lot of rework. When a level doesn't work, it's rarely obvious why, and fixing it can take days. Level designers work best in studios with established pipelines, AAA and AA especially. Outsourcing studios also rely heavily on this role. AI? AI can generate layouts, but it can't feel pacing, and it can't read the player psychology. If you want to be a level designer, your portfolio matters more than your resume. Show levels, playable ones, not documents. Technical designers live between design and code. They are the people who usually make systems usable. They don't just say how things should work, they make them work using tools, scripts, and data. On a daily basis, technical designers prototype mechanics, tune systems, script interactions, and remove friction between design intent and implementation. If programmers build the engine, technical designers drive it. Pros: high demand, very practical skill set, and one of the best entry points into design. Cons: can turn into glue work, harder to get recognition, and easy to overextend into programming. Technical designers thrive in mid-sized teams and live service projects, anywhere systems change often and need fast iteration. AI helps with scripting and prototyping, but someone still needs to understand the system deeply enough to tune it. If you like design but hate pure theory, this role is for you. Just remember, you're paid to remove friction, not create complexity. Let's talk about art, and let's get one thing out of the way immediately. Yes, AI is absolutely changing this field, but not in the way most people think. What AI is really doing is filtering. It's removing the gray mass, the good enough artists, the one who were competing the speed and volume. And that sounds scary until you realize what happens next. The best artists don't disappear, they become rarer. And when something becomes rarer, it gets more expensive. Art roles in game dev are not one thing. 2D artists, 3D artists, environment artists, character artists, different focuses, same expectation. Your work has to hold up in production. On a daily basis, artists create assets, iterate based on feedback, adapt to technical constraints, and make sure that your work survives contact with the engine. Looking good in Blender is not enough. It has to look good in-game. Pros: clear visual output, strong freelance potential, and top-tier artists are always in demand. Cons: massive competition, a rapidly rising quality bar, and yes, average skill is no longer enough. Artists work across studios, outsourcing teams, and freelance. AAA relies heavily on specialization, indie relies on versatility. AI is the tool, the same way Photoshop was a tool, the same way Substance was a tool. It accelerates good artists and it completely exposes weak ones. If your value was speed, AI competes with you. If your value is taste, composition, and problem solving, AI works for you. If you want to survive as an artist in game dev, you can't aim for average. Average is what AI replaces first. The ceiling didn't get lower, it got higher. Technical artists are the bridge between art and code. They make sure that art pipeline actually works. They don't just fix problems, they prevent them. On a daily basis, technical artists build shaders, create tools for artists, optimize assets and materials, and make sure visuals scale across platforms. If artists can work together without breaking the game, that's tech art. Pros: extremely high demand, low competition, and one of the hardest roles to replace. Cons: steep learning curve, constant context switching, and you sit in the middle of every argument. Technical artists thrive in mid to large studios, anywhere pipelines, performance and scale matter. AI can generate materials and shaders, but someone still needs to make them production ready. If you like solving problems that nobody else wants to touch, tech art is the gold mine. But you need depth. There is no shallow version of this role. VFX artists focus on feedback and spectacle. They make actions readable, satisfying and impactful. Their work isn't about realism, it's about clarity and emotion. On a daily basis, VFX artists create particle effects, sync visuals with gameplay events, optimize effects so they don't destroy performance, and constantly tweak timing and readability. Pros: very visible impact, strong specialization and high demand in action-heavy games. Cons: heavy iteration, performance constraints and effects that get cut late in production. VFX artists shine in AAA, AA and action-focused projects. Live service games rely on them for constant content updates. AI can generate base effects, but it can judge readability, timing or style. If you love a visual impact and iteration, VFX is the great pass. Just remember, every effect has to earn its frame time. In theory, these are two different roles. In reality, they are often one person. UI is about how things look, layout, hierarchy, readability. UX is about how things feel, flow, clarity, friction, accessibility. On big teams, this role can be split. On most projects, they are combined. On a daily basis, UI/UX designers design menus and HUDs, test navigation with mouse, keyboard and controller, remove unnecessary steps and make sure players understand what the game wants from them. If players are confused, it's an UX problem. If players are annoyed, it's usually a UX problem too. Pros: very clear impact on player retention, strong demand in live service and mobile games, and a skill set that transfer well outside game dev. Cons: lots of subjective feedback, endless iterations, and everyone around you thinks they're UX expert. UI/UX designers are critical in live service, mobile and indie games. Anywhere friction kills retention, this role matters. AI can generate layouts, it can suggest patterns, it cannot understand player frustration. UX is about empathy, and empathy doesn't autocomplete. If you want to work in UI/UX, you need to test with real players, not designers, not developers, players. Good UI is invisible, bad UI makes people quit. Let's talk about audio. The thing players notice the moment it's missing and forget the moment it works. Good audio doesn't just sound nice, it explains the game, it gives feedback, it makes action feel real. In game dev, audio usually falls into three roles: sound designers, composers, and voice actors. And they are not equally affected by what's happening in the industry. Sound designers are not just people who make sounds, they implement them. They work with events, states, transitions, they decide when a sound plays and when it shouldn't. On a daily basis, sound designers create and edit sound effects, integrate them through middleware, tune volumes, priorities and layers, and make sure audio reacts correctly to the gameplay. Pros: highly specialized skill set. Still essential for polished games and much harder to automate than people think. Cons: fewer full-time roles, a lot of contract and freelance work, and audio is often brought in late. Sound designers work across studios and outsourcing teams. Long-term roles exist, but competition is real. AI can generate raw sounds, it cannot design interactive audio systems. Implementation is the mode. Composers create music, themes, mood, identity. In games, music isn't linear, it has to adapt. Game composers write themes, create loops and layers, and design music that reacts to gameplay states. Pros: creative fulfillment, strong emotional impact. Cons: oversupply. Very few full-time positions and AI pressure on generic music. Most composers work freelance. Full-time composer roles are very rare. AI can generate music, but it cannot create a memorable identity on its own. Voice acting is the role most visibly hit by AI, and pretending otherwise helps nobody. But it didn't disappear, it narrowed. Voice actors provide performances, not just voices, emotion, timing, and intention. Pros: high impact when done well, strong differentiation at the top end. Cons: shrinking market, high competition and replacement of generic roles. Voice acting survives in narrative-heavy and premium projects. If you're already known, if your voice is recognizable, if players actually care about hearing you. For established actors, the market is smaller but stable. For newcomers, it's extremely hard. Breaking in without a name is tougher than ever. AI replaces generic delivery, it doesn't replace acting. Audio isn't dying, it's specializing. If you want to work in audio, you need to own the interactive side. Sound that reacts, music that adapts, performance that matters. Now, let's talk about the roles nobody dreams about, and no project survives without. Production and support roles don't create content, they make sure content actually turns into a shipped game. Producers and project managers are professional communicators. That's the job. Their main responsibility isn't tools, it isn't planning, it's communication between departments. Design wants more features, programming wants less scope, art wants more time, and someone has to sit in the middle of that all day. This is the role where you spend most of your time doing something a normal developer would rather avoid. On a daily basis, project managers coordinate teams, clarify priorities, resolve misunderstandings, and make sure information actually reaches the right people. You are the human API between departments. Pros: very stable demand, clear ownership, and a lot of influence. Cons: constant context switching, emotional load, and if you hate talking to people, this job will destroy you. And when things go wrong, it's your fault. QA is not about playing games, it's about understanding systems well enough to break them on purpose. Modern QA is split into two big areas: manual testing and test automations. Manual QA focuses on exploration, trying stupid things, finding edge cases, and reproducing bugs reliably. Good testers don't just find bugs, they explain them. Automation engineers write tests. Integration tests, regression tests, build verification tests. They don't test creativity, they protect stability. Pros: lower entry barrier, clear learning paths, and automation QA overlaps heavily with programming skills. Cons: manual testing can be repetitive. Automation require real technical skill, and both roles are easy to underestimate. QA is a solid career if you treat it seriously, but if you think it's a shortcut into development, you'll hate it. Alright, let's zoom out one last time. Game dev in 2026 is not dead, but it is less forgiving, less romantic, and way more honest. The industry didn't collapse, it filtered. There are still jobs, there are still careers, but there is much less room for average. If you're good, the ceiling is higher than ever. If you're replaceable, the floor is gone. So, if you're starting out, don't ask which role is safe. Ask, what problems do I actually enjoy solving? What kind of pain can I tolerate for years? And where can I realistically get good? Not fast, but deep. There is no universal best role. There is only the role you can survive long enough to master. If I missed your role, throw rocks at me in the comments, seriously. Correct me, add nuances, tell your story. If you're already in the industry, share what your job actually looks like. If you're just starting, ask questions. This comment section will be way more useful than any single video. And quick reminder for developers watching this, on Patreon I'll go deeper. We break down the real career paths, junior to middle, middle to senior, what changes, what actually matters, and what nobody tells you. For others, well, there is still exclusive content and early access to my videos. If this video helped you, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. It helps the channel grow and it tells me this kind of content is worth making. Game dev is hard, but it's still one of the few industries where skill actually compounds. Just make sure you're building the right one, and remember, all these careers are great, but most importantly, stay safe and love your mom. Cheers.